My name is Manny Pelaez. Thank you so much for joining us today. The point of today was to get you in front of Paula Gold-Williams, the president and CEO of CPS Energy, and get you in front of Robert Puente, the president and CEO of SAWS, San Antonio Water Systems. Your two utilities that are municipally owned utility. That's one of the things that makes them very, very special. And we're going to talk about that today. But first, some housekeeping rules. Many of you will have questions because we promised you that you'd have an opportunity to ask questions. And so those questions have been received, many have been received in advance, and they've helped inform our topics for tonight. But you can also share your questions in the chat section here on Facebook. And so please note, we will not be able to answer all the questions, but if you send us a message on Facebook, or if you send us a message via email at council.district8, the number 8, at sanantonio.gov, my staff is going to be able to follow up and provide support. All right. So why are we doing this? Well, we decided to bring the heads of our utilities together because 2020 has been an excruciating challenge for a lot of us. And our public utility providers, CPS Energy and SAWS, have both really stepped up in a way to serve our community that they've never been called upon to do in the past, in a way they've never been called upon to do in the past. And they've done it superbly. So tonight we're going to look at how our public utility partners have helped the community during the COVID-19 crisis, during this really, really difficult year. We're going to be talking about what our neighbors can expect on the horizon in 2021. And we're going to ask the two pinnacle leaders at SAWS and CPS to tell us what they have to say about concerns among neighbors, about their rates and services. We've seen a lot of utilities struggle around the country during this time, and particularly if you're keeping your eye on California. And so, Paula, later on, I'm going to ask you about California and how we compare to some of those utilities over there. And lastly, there have been a lot, some major community conversations about unique developments within each of our utility organizations in 2020. So for SAWS, we're going to look at the new alternative funding program for the Edwards Aquifer and a petition that's floating around in the community. And we're going to ask Mr. Puente to weigh in on what he thinks about that. And as for CPS Energy, we're going to look at the development of a rate advisory committee, the RAC. And also, Paula, I'm going to ask you straight out to kind of give us your insights about the local petition calling for changes at CPS. So without further wait, I'm going to introduce you to my friends. The first one is Paula Gold-Williams, and she's the CEO and the president of CPS Energy. And Paula has held her leadership positions at CPS Energy for close to 16 years. And she's been serving as the utility CEO and president since 2015. And Paula received her BBA in accounting from St. Mary's University. She's a Rattler, and she got her MBA in accounting and finance in Denver at Regis University. And Paula's got a really distinguished history of leadership. And her program, the Innovative People First model, it's a real source of pride for us in our community. And we're fortunate to have her at the helm of CPS Energy. Welcome, Paula. We've also got
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Yes, ma'am. And then we've also got Robert Puente, the CEO and president of SAWS. And Robert was appointed as the president and CEO of SAWS in 2008. And prior to that, he represented us in the Texas House of Representatives. When he first got elected was in 1991, and he was appointed to the House and Natural Resources Committee, which develops the state's water policy. And he became a subject matter expert on water policy. And by 2003, he was the chairman of that committee. And he really was recognized as one of the policy pioneers of modern water supply management in Texas. And we're really lucky to have him with us today. Welcome, Robert.
Well, thank you very much. Sorry I was a little bit late. I just got in from a tour of Mitchell Lake with some of our board members.
Yes, yes, and you've got new board members, Robert, and we'll talk about your board a little bit later on. But I'm going to start with a COVID response question. And Paula, this one's going to go to you. You know, the COVID pandemic has been unprecedented. And don't you wish that we were precedented? I mean, we're going through precedented times. I'd love to go back to precedented, but it's unprecedented and it's ongoing, and it's brought a lot of unique challenges and required our community to really make some serious adjustments. And I know that CPS Energy has been on the forefront of responding, but tell us how have you guys stepped up here, and what should folks keep their eye on going forward? When it comes to the COVID response at CPS.
Thank you for the question. We know it's top of mind. 2020 was nothing like we thought it would be. And that's under 2 years continuity program that we've had for years. We've had a pandemic preparedness program that we've had for years. We saw the COVID-19 virus start to develop halfway across the world. And we were doing a lot of things early. We were, using hand sanitizer. We were doing fist bumps back in February. And we were trying to be careful, but obviously this thing, as you say, Councilman Pelaez, was absolutely unprecedented. All of that wasn't just, it was probably a half a step towards what we had to really do. When we saw how difficult it was, when people came back from spring break in March, and we started seeing the cases escalate and San Antonio become a hotspot itself, and start to see the magnitude of this, the first thing we did was re-strategize about having to physically distance at work. But then under the People First model, People First was designed, I thought about it as I took over. It says that we always focus on customers. Customers are our beacon. We have to take care of the customers and make sure that they're getting what they need. We serve in a community of which we also live, and our employees, we have to keep focusing on them so they're also protected and can do a good job. So we immediately pulled out that model and started thinking what's the best thing that we can do. In sync, pretty much, I am honored to be a peer of Robert's. We were both thinking about what we can do. And early on, we were one of the first utilities to suspend disconnects. And, but that was the right step to make, but there was more that had to be done. At CPS Energy, we also took an action with our board and the council, because we are precluded from waiving late fees unless we get the authority to do that. And so ultimately the board and council members approved us to be able to waive late fees. We have payment plans, and we've been changing our whole approach. We have never had outbound calls before, and we started an outbound call program. And we now call customers and ask, do you know about our programs? Do you know about programs across the community, United Way, Food Bank, all types of family programs? We now want to talk as much as we can to help the community, because we also know that this has affected the economy. It's affected and put people out of jobs. Our energy advisors who answer the phone and now make phone calls, they're motivated every single day to reach out and see how we can be helpful. We haven't done a disconnect since March of 2015. We won't start disconnects again this year. We're not currently sure when we would start them in 2021. But the biggest thing that we're really focused on is just being here to be as helpful to our customers as we can.
Thank you. Robert, same question to you. What is SAW's done as far as heavy lifting to help this community face this challenge of COVID, and what SAW's programs are out there for folks in need? And you're on mute, Robert.
Thank you, Manny, for the opportunity to participate in this town hall. It's a great way to get out there and talk to your constituents, even though we're under these types of restrictions. But the things that we have done are a lot of things, exactly as Paula talked about, regarding CPS Energy. Every public utility and private utilities, they better have had an emergency plan already in place, and they better have practiced that plan because we are subject to some very serious potential downturns, whether it is weather related, and in this case, obviously this particular pandemic. So we were prepared in that sense. We immediately sent our employees home, told them to start working from home with their computers. And we also discontinued the act of our customers, if they're not paying their bills, that we're not going to be providing that service. So that has been ongoing. It's been a financial have the right type of financial wherewithal to withstand that kind of issue. And so we're doing very well on that front, where we can afford start paying their bill if they're still in a situation that they find themselves in, either one of the two spouses losing a job or that program is still in place. We are funding it with more money to make sure that it lasts a bit longer. We are not going to start discounting our customers until we give them very adequate notice. What we have started already is an opportunity for them to start going onto our website or calling us, talking to us about getting on some payment programs. And so they on their own have picked a plan that works for them, that they can get online, back online with us, payment over a so many month period. So we have a lot of programs for our customers that they can take advantage of. As a utility, we still have to provide that service of water and wastewater. And I think it's not an optimum way of running a utility, but we've been very successful in making sure that we get those services out.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And, you know, I do want to stop here, and I've got a list of questions that I've written down and that we've taken from the public. And I'm going to ask you a question from the public in a second, but I've got one of my own, and that is, you know, Paula and Robert, my understanding is that SAWS and CPS are staffed by thousands of people who are San Antonians and who've been facing their own challenges at home and who've been scared throughout 2020 and who are still scared, right? And they're testing positive. And you know, how do you continue to deliver services when so much of that requires folks to come into the office and go to the plant? And you know, how have you changed the way you do business, Paula?
Well, just about everything we've done has been a change. Just like San Antonio, I always say that we're only 2 degrees of separation. We're very much used to being in meetings together, talking to one another, being in the physical presence, appreciating that. And CPS Energy is no different. We're kind of completely a city within a city. And so very much it changed how we interacted. This virtual, you know, ability that we are now utilizing to contact your constituents is now common day, but we had to do a ton of stuff to make this all materialize, change how we have meetings, change how we meet. And then we did a review of all walking through processes for our field employees. Our wonderful employees, our skilled craft employees, are out there every day. They are out there, I always say, with S's under their blue shirts, and they're supported with strong unions that have great leadership. Our IBEW union and our NAPE unions have been lockstep with us as we've been looking and relooking at our processes and procedures. We've done everything, though. We've changed how we communicate. I now over the year, I've changed. It's not just about being in presence. I mean, I send them phone messages, I send them Bitmojis, but with me, you know, air hugs and wash your hands. And so sometimes the messages are serious, and I'm sending them video links and text messages. We're having stand downs and going through the ability to remind them about the importance of physical distancing and being disciplined when they're away from work. Our employees didn't skip a beat. We are all essential services. So knowing that we needed to keep the lights on continually, we just had to really do our best to help our employees physically and emotionally. You know, at the very, very beginning, it was tough. I was talking to employees and they were worried and concerned. We knew so little at the beginning, and we would have to quarantine groups of people based upon their interactions initially, and we didn't understand what to tell everyone. We were doing nighttime sanitations of service centers, and I had a couple of employees send me notes like, you know, this is, you know, this uncertainty, this tension is just tremendously tough for them, and they worried about the way they work and have they in some way affected their family members, or how do they really make sure that we keep the customer safe. I mean, it was emotional, and it has been an emotional roller coaster. They too have spouses in many cases that have been affected, or family members that they can't come see because they're not in the same household, or children that they're educating at home. And so very much the things that we've heard from our customers and talked to them about, our employees have experienced. I think though, what it ultimately has done for us, we now, when we are using these virtual mechanisms, we really realize that we still have to be absolutely present in the moment. Like we don't take anybody for granted. We are so grateful as a team of 3,100 hardworking and dedicated employees that we have the privilege to serve this community, the community of which many of us were born and raised in. I was born and raised in San Antonio. And I really believe that we have this wonderful community that we have to help one another. We have to be thoughtful. We have to be just able to think about what can we do, and check on people, check on folks. Now, it's not just all about, you know, what business do we have to do. We oftentimes ask people, how are you absolutely doing? There's an emotional aspect to how challenging this has been, on top of the all of the technical issues that have happened, and then people worrying about the future. You know, will jobs come back or will they not? Will businesses come back? How can we restart the community from an economic development standpoint and get us back to a place where people can feel a whole lot more confident? And from that standpoint, we've been working with small businesses. We've been working with just all businesses. We've offered them payment plans, things that we haven't done before, because it's just so broad and deep. So I would tell you, every aspect of what we do has changed. I would say that we continue though to believe that you got to make lemonade out of the lemons that you're given, and be appreciative of the things that you have. And I think all of our employees are thankful for San Antonio. We feel like this will pass. And so our responsibility again is to help everybody get through it.
Yeah. And, you know, Robert, you can't make lemonade without water. And so, you know, a lot of folks, and I think the same goes for CPS. A lot of people believe that CPS really is, or SAWS is, you know, it's poles and wires and generation plants, and then water pipes and pumps, right? And that there's no people behind there. We never really give thought to the folks who are behind the scenes, making it seem like delivery of energy and delivery of water is effortless, right? We just turn on the water and out it comes, or we flip the switch and the light turns on. So, Robert, with regards to the people who work, you know, alongside you, how are they doing here? How are they doing here in the face of this challenge?
It's difficult, Councilman. I won't deny that. It's very difficult for them. You know, part of the whole thing is, hopefully for a lot of our employees, work was not just work, but it was an opportunity to socialize, an opportunity to share your values, share your upbringing, share your time with a good set of people. So that is absent now. There are divisions within SAWS that they do have to go to work every single day, because you can't do that type of work at home. You were talking about, you know, wires and poles and pipes. We have a whole building dedicated to just laboratory. of testing water and wastewater and making sure that it passes all kinds of standards. So you can't take that kind of equipment home. And so that at least they get to have that sense that of camaraderie, of being able to do their job and seeing their job. But you're absolutely right. There's a mindset. So we as leaders, I think, heads of the organization have to, for example, if we have a Zoom call with our employees, is to almost mandate that they turn on their video camera so that we can see each other, so that we can really see how they're doing and comment on their background, if they're changing it or not, comment on the cat that's crossing over the camera. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, there that we can still get their spirits up, get them motivated, but it's up to Paula and me to set the example and let them know that what they're doing is a very serious, valued enterprise, a very important issue for us and for our community. And it's sometimes I think we have to be cheerleaders. We have to be individuals that raise the morale if we see that it's going down. And there's been at different times, yes, that it's been going down a bit. And we have to do things that really get their spirits back up.
So you still have a water company to run, Robert, and people still expect their water to show up the minute they turn their faucet on. They still expect their toilets to flush, and they expect, sewers to work. And so let's talk sewers for a second, because we do have a question from one of our friends, Mario Aguilar, online, and he asks to you, what is the progress with completing or complying with the consent decree regarding the sewer system upgrades? And the reason I'm asking you that, Robert, is because some of our follow-up questions later today, I think, are also going to be hinging on the success of or what the consent decree program really is about.
Well, that's a very good question. Oftentimes when people see the water utility, they think water, period. They don't think of the other part of half of what we do, wastewater. And so we have a 10-year consent decree. We're in year 7 of that consent decree. And this essentially was an agreement with the EPA, the federal government, the Justice Department, about upgrading our sewer system. They are doing this throughout the United States. We were one of the first ones in the country to do it. And frankly, I think one of the reasons we were one of the first ones is that they wanted for us to set an example for the rest of the nation. And if you talk to EPA in Dallas that takes care of this region, you will see that what we've done in the last 7 years is the model. They always point to San Antonio as the proper way to do it. So every single milestone, every single requirement, every single deadline within that consent decree has been met. And we're on on budget to finish that consent decree in the 10-year period. We were granted an extension on a couple of projects because there were issues outside of our control. In other words, the federal government itself, Lackland Air Force Base, there was big issues with us going through their property, rightly so, regarding security, but we've worked that out. And so they gave us another couple of years to finish that project. It has started. So the consent decree is ongoing. Corpus Christi just got their consent decree. The city of Tyler, Houston, they're all getting their consent decrees. But as I mentioned, ours were in year 7 of the 10 years.
Okay. Now, Paula, change of topic to you, but again, very important. We've got Joshua Triana online, who's asking us about electric vehicles. And so his question is, do you have any restrictions on electric vehicle chargers? But, let's unpack that a little bit. How much of your time is spent thinking about electric vehicles, and how much of your forecasting includes this electric vehicle phenomenon? And what are you all doing to get ready for that?
Oh, well, we've been into supporting electric vehicles for, I would say, probably 7 years at least right now. We have about 150 chargers across San Antonio. It's kind of a drop in the bucket when you think about how many gas stations there currently are, but it's a different model because people can put and charge at home. That's going to be, I think, a common occurrence, as we keep moving forward. We also have a strategic team. It's cross-functional across CPS Energy. We have multiple people that look at it. So we're monitoring how the development of the industry is occurring. So our team, we talk about, matter of fact, we have meetings every 2 weeks, and in that we're talking about, what's happening with the technology. We're seeing prices come down. We're seeing models get a lot more creative. Elon Musk was a visionary, but we're also seeing new types of models. The truck, I think the electrification of the truck is one of the biggest drivers for Texans. And, we saw that Elon Musk put that model out there, but there will be others. And so we definitely support electric vehicles. We did a super fast charging installation of chargers with Walmart on the northwest side of town. That was about a program that was tied to Electrify America. And anytime that we can partner with a group so we can put more charging stations across San Antonio, we would very much want to do that. We are not going to be in the charging business. We're going to be in the infrastructure business and connection. There are things you have to do specifically in terms of where you put charging stations, because you have to think about the stability of the grid and how you put it there. We need to bring our expertise to make sure that we're putting in the right level of infrastructure so that the charging stations can operate well. And then the people who actually design and keep innovating charging stations, we can partner with them. And that's what we're super interested in. We do have a rate program that we're piloting currently. And what we really want, I'm gonna go there. What we really want, we want people to adopt the technology and ultimately find the types of vehicles that they're interested in, but we really want them to charge at night. This way you don't put as much stress on the system. Your vehicle gets charged, and then we can reduce the load and demand of power and manage it more economically. It doesn't make any benefit for anyone if you get an electric vehicle and it doesn't emit, but you're charging at the height of the day and dragging and driving the source of let's build some more power plants way too fast. So that said, we have a rate that we pilot that gives a discount at night. You never want to charge between 3 o'clock and 7 p.m. During the day. But outside of that, we want to continue to support it. So we're talking directly to manufacturers to see that they're planning to put more and more vehicles out there for availability, and we're going to be there to support that need all across San Antonio. We think every part of San Antonio, customers are going to be interested in somehow going after an electric vehicle and putting that in their family. If they're a 2-car family, we think one of them is going to be an electric vehicle in the next 10 years.
Well, I promised you during the preamble to my comments and right at the beginning of this presentation that we were going to talk about how it is that y'all are different, CPS is different than, let's say, other utilities around the country. And you just said stress on the system. We want people to focus on, charging at night. And stress on the system. We're seeing brownouts in California. We're seeing struggles that other utilities are having. And so talk to me about, how other utilities are compared to CPS, and really what are some things that people should keep an eye on when determining whether or not they should be proud of CPS?
Well, I appreciate that. Look, the business for decades didn't change. The infrastructure has been, a big way on the distribution and transmission side aren't very different. However, there's been a lot of progress in terms of renewables, the abundance of renewables, the price has gone down. And what really happens in innovation is what you want to see is the price of the technology come down, and you want to see the efficiency go up. And accordingly, CPS Energy has 1,000 megawatts of wind. We've been in the wind business for 20 years. And Texas is the leader in terms of wind energy. And we have been a leader in Texas in wind for many years. We're #1 in solar in Texas. Out of all the major markets in Texas, CPS Energy in San Antonio, Texas, working with our customers, both on rooftop and utility scale. We're number one in Texas. So a lot of times when people say, well, they're not progressive and they're not focused on doing all the things that are really helpful, we need to keep reminding folks and informing them that we really are. We have an award-winning energy efficiency and conservation program. That is the program that's done everything from moving us from CFL lights to LED lights, more efficient lights. I mean, that was where we started, but now we have weatherization. We do have rebates and programs for efficient appliances. The rooftop program is there. We have a program where customers don't even have to put any money down and they'll get a credit back. And we work with the third party to make sure that it's not cost prohibitive to do something in terms of new technologies and renewables. So we actually lead, and we're recognized outside of San Antonio. CPS Energy is recognized across the nation and the globe. And so we're talking to everyone about all these things that are happening. Now, we have pillars that we make sure when we're making decisions, we're thinking about how do you do everything in balance and do the right thing to make the right decisions and encourage the right partnership with the community. And those pillars include making sure that everything we do keeps the bill cost top of mind. We know that customer affordability is really important and that reliability is really important. We know that resilience is important. That's more of a how fast can we get systems back up if there's a problem, that there's a safety, security aspect of the power and the grid, and that environmental responsibility is really important. The way San Antonio has been taken care of by CPS Energy, we didn't have names for all of that before, but on top of the people first mantra that we follow, we now have a flexible path. And our flexible path strategy was created in 2017. That tells us to keep looking for new solutions, keep implementing them, and keep making sure they happen, and make sure that you don't sacrifice one of those pillars for another. Of course, we want to increasingly improve the environmental responsibility aspects of it. We have the solar, the wind. We closed 2 older coal units. We have a great energy efficiency and conservation program, and our emissions profile is coming down. Now, part of the challenge that we have is San Antonio continues to grow. So the growth in some way outpaces our ability to just get absolutely in front of it, but we're not daunted. We're making good progress and we're going to move forward. What you see in California is a lot of interest in solving the problems, primarily from an environmental responsibility perspective, right? So through their efforts, they're putting a whole lot of wind and solar on the grid. They're taking their fossil and their baseload generation plants off, and they're moving faster than anybody else on EVs. That's great. But the real challenge with solar is, like right now in the middle of the night, if you were only solar powered and you didn't have long duration storage, we wouldn't be having this call. So solar's great. It's great in the sunny parts of the day. It's great when the weather is really strong and great. You need to have a lot of different solutions. So what happens in California, they're producing a lot of energy that never gets utilized because they're producing it at peak, and then they don't have it exactly at the other times of day or when the weather's not so great. And so they're having this really tighter threat of rolling blackouts, and that's challenging. We are generators here, and because reliability is important to us, we're trying to do everything we can to not let that transition result in blackouts. We don't want, we're connected all to the grid, but if CPS Energy was to move to all solar tomorrow, we could put the community and the state at risk of rolling blackouts. And if we move too fast and we said, well, let's just, what I typically say with batteries, you rack them and stack them. You have to make them deep because they don't have a long duration. And so you have to invest a lot in them. And then you could actually implement your programs in such a way that you're going to drive costs sooner and higher and higher and higher. And so the timing of change matters. I just want to assure all your constituents, we're thinking about how to make it as smooth as possible, how to make that journey work. So as we get more environmentally successful, as we reduce admissions, and we are reducing them, and we're committed to reducing those. Our flexible path is going to reduce our emissions profile by 80% by 2040. And our board endorsed the climate action and adaptation plan that the council approved, which is Paris Accord by 2050. We're committed to that. And we think in fact, the more that we can work together with the community, we can beat those goals. So our approach is to make sure that everything stays in balance, that we don't sacrifice one for the other, that we make sure that we keep it affordable, that we make sure that we keep it reliable. And that's what we do differently here. And that's what we've been successful at. And it's one step at a time, but it really does matter. Every single step you do in this journey forward to make San Antonio's future brighter, so to speak, and more effective is something that the CPS Energy team focuses on all the time. Somebody said to me one day, they said, well, what makes you the expert? I said, well, CPS Energy has been doing this for 160 years, not me personally, but the company. We're in generation, transmission, and distribution business and customer business. Right. We're in the retail market and we're in the wholesale market, and we do just about anything that any other major utility does. But we do it through our people first values. We do it because we're passionate about doing it right for San Antonio. Think global, act local. Bring all the best solutions and blend them in with stuff that's working and do it well for our community. That's what's different here.
Wonderful. So, Robert, Paula spent some time talking to us about sustainability and how CPS has stepped up, and answered the green question and keeps answering the green question when it comes to San Antonio's power needs. But, let's talk Edwards Aquifer. Edwards Aquifer is our jewel, and it's one of the things that makes us really unique, and that is we're the 10th largest city that sits atop a very delicate water resource. So, in 2019, we increased the amount that SAWS sends over to the city from 2.7 to 4%. And now that money is going to be used, and there's going to be bonds pledged to fund the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program. So what does this mean for SAWS, Robert? And what will people see in their rates as a result of that?
Well, to answer the last question first, they will not see a rate increase because of that. What the city did in increasing the contribution that we make to the city was done in 2019. So therefore, in 2019 and 2020, we have already absorbed that within our budget. So that has no play in this. What the city has decided to do is the 4% that we do send to the city, they're going to use from that percentage. They're going to fund this program. So again, that doesn't have much to do with our rates. However, SAWS is still obviously the primary water provider for probably 90% of the people that live in Bexar County and 3 other surrounding counties. And so we have a lot to do with the protection of the Edwards Aquifer. We have a lot of programs ourselves that we either have or that we enforce or that we regulate to make sure that we have high quality water and are able to protect the aquifer. So that is still happening. What is left to figure out, though, is what's going to happen in the future. As we know, our voters voted to start funding a different program, transportation and some workforce development issues that the city is doing with that 1/8 sales tax that used to fund the Edwards Aquifer program. So I think the city has a very good solution to that. The aquifer program is still going to be funded, still going to be protected. Our public would not see a skipping of the beat on that issue. In addition to that, without any kind of rate increase, without any kind of tax increase for, I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5 years, but for a good period of time, the city will have access to that money to use for workforce development for our community, educational issues for our community, to respond to this pandemic that we're under. And then it'll go to VIA for their purposes, their public transit purposes. So we're very proud to have been involved in that. We're very proud to continue to do and fund some of the other programs that protect our primary drinking water source.
So speaking of drinking water sourcing, Vista Ridge is something that a lot of San Antonians know about, but some folks on this call may not have heard about it yet. And so tell us how the Vista Ridge program is going. And it garners a lot of attention. And is it succeeding? Is it going according to plan? And what should we expect to see with Vista Ridge?
It is highly successful, and it's going exactly according to plan. And it was online as of April of this year. And so we are receiving at Vista Ridge water, which comes from 140 miles away from the Carrizo Aquifer, which, by the way, is an aquifer that goes all the way from Mexico to Arkansas, past those political boundaries. And so the sweet spot for that is about 140 miles away. The unique thing about this project was that in previous times, SOS has been unsuccessful in acquiring that big, huge water source that we need for water security for decades into the future. Whether it was Applewhite, or whether it was the LCRA project, where it was the Guadalupe River project, they were all unsuccessful for different reasons at different times. And so what we wanted to do in this circumstance was frankly to succeed, to make sure that that project delivered water to San Antonio. And so what we chose to do was to transfer all of the risk to the private sector. We essentially told the private sector through a competitive process, competitive seal proposal process, is provide water to the gate of San Antonio, to our doorstep, and we will pay you. Mm-hmm. You do all the permitting, whether it's endangered species, whether it's going under a railroad, under a river, you get all the rights of way, all the easements necessary, you finance it, you build it, you design it, you do everything. You worry about the construction cost, you worry about the labor issues, you worry about all of that. Once it gets to San Antonio, we will pay you for that water. And only if it gets to San Antonio will we pay you for that water. So the big issue was the risk that develops from the county of origin on whether or not that political body at any time can choose to say, we don't want that amount of water leaving our county. So if they ever choose to do that, and believe me, a lot of counties throughout Texas do that, they cut permits almost in half sometimes. Yeah. And it's happened to SAWS before. So if they do cut the permit, if less water is being developed and transported to San Antonio, then we don't have to pay for it. But somebody still has to pay for all of that infrastructure, all of that financing, and that is the private sector. We are not on the hook for that. We do not have a risk regarding that. That is on them. And so another thing that we did is that the price of the water is stable. It is static. It does not change for the next 30 years. I challenge you, any commodity of as important as water, that its price will not change for the next 30 years. And not only that, council member, for the next 30 years after that, we have a separate agreement with the landowners that we will release their water for another 30 years, and we've already locked in that price. So we essentially have a 60-year project online right now that provides water security for our citizens. So anything regarding economic growth, regarding attracting businesses here, they will not be asking, do you have a water source that we can rely on for the next 20, 30, 40 years? That box has been checked. They can worry about our educational system. They can worry about our workforce. Paula will take care of the power. But as far as water, they don't have to worry about it.
So then that begs the question, and I'm going to ask both of you guys a hard question. Paula, we just heard from Robert tell us that the taking on the responsibility for funding the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program will not raise rates. We just heard from him tell us, buying today's water, or tomorrow's water at today's prices is going to save us a lot of money in rates. So And yet, in the newspaper, every once in a while, they always like to ask, what's going to happen to rates, in 2021, 22, 23. And it should come as no surprise that a lot of my constituents ask us all the time too. So straight question, what can utility paying San Antonians expect in 2021 as far as rates goes from CPS Energy? And Robert, please be prepared to answer that question as well. Paula?
Okay. Well, I think the best way to talk about the future is also to understand where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
We understand that customer affordability is just a primary concern for everyone. And we have never come forward to ask the community for anything unless we absolutely needed it. So when you look at our particular case, we haven't, we've only had one rate increase in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
In 10 years. And it always comes up. And Councilman Pelaez, you and other council members, you're always interested. Paula, are you going to come? We're like, well, we hope not to. And 9 times out of the 10 years, we haven't had to. We came once. That was 6 years ago. The interesting thing is every time it's come up, for us, it's about to make sure that we're focused on customer affordability. We're constantly looking at things where we can save money. We get it. If we're going to invest in new technology like meters, digital meters, that helped us when we invested in it because we didn't have to send people out to do certain activities to fix certain things. We can fix it remotely now. We can fix it through the system. It just makes us overall more efficient. Every time we can do stuff like that, it has helped. And so we have looked and thought constantly. And if you look at our board meetings, most of them have some element of cost savings. And we ask every single employee across CPS Energy to come forward with savings. We got a little distracted of reporting them. We were still going after them when COVID happened. COVID again sucked all the air out of the room, literally. But we were still doing it. And so we've been constantly focused on that. And now what's happened is just like our employees are, our customers are struggling. And this is a horrible time. And we know that we need to be helpful. And so we have suspended disconnects because of the challenges that people are under. Those have a ripple effect to us as a utility. If businesses go out, they don't come back. And that is the saddest thing because that means jobs are affected. That means the economy is affected. We experience a ripple of that as well. And so this is the first year that we can find documented in our history that we're going to lose money. We believe we're going to lose around $20 million. But it would be worse if the team wasn't going out there looking for cost savings constantly. We're still going to make it through this year. And we understand you can't come arbitrarily, keep looking, keep driving. So there will be no rate increase this year. We're almost through it this calendar year anyway. When we look at the forecast for next year, we think that the loss could easily double to $40 million. And so somebody would say, well, but maybe you still shouldn't come. It's still too difficult. We're still going to try our best not to come unless we have to. But what we have seen is that even the wholesale sales market, Councilman Pelaez, that normally helps us offset the cost. If we can sell a megawatt of power in the wholesale market, that's to other people outside of San Antonio. That's a megawatt of power that doesn't have to be taken care of by the retail customers. But we've even seen, of course, the globe and nation and state are affected. So last year, when we made probably about $140 million in wholesale sales, this year we're making about 40, and we're still, having challenges in the retail market. So what we're going to do next year, we're going to try to do our best to approach next year, try to see if there's a possibility of having a great wholesale sales year next year in the summer. And the wholesale sales typically materializes in the summer from what we call the June through September period. And if we can have another good year, that in many ways will lessen the need for us to ask. I will say that ultimately we're going to have to ask. I don't know anything that hasn't had some semblance of impact over the last 10 years in terms of price. And you go to the grocery store, prices change every day. You go to different places, they change. Again, we don't do it arbitrarily, but ultimately just to run the business, to make sure that people have reliable power, resilient power, that we're making those changes on the environmental front, and still making sure that we can invest in new systems that make us more efficient. We're going to keep doing that. We've held our head count to about 3,100 employees for years. We're very frugal. We're very careful about how we spend dollars, but eventually costs are rising on us, but the service still has to occur. When we do come, and I haven't declared one yet, we'll wait till we do it and get through most of next year. If we come next year, it'll probably be in the fall. We will take it very seriously. We'll come with a detailed rate case. We'll look at everything that's happening. We have an obligation to manage the assets that the city owns,
Right.
that all the customers own through the city of San Antonio. You got to maintain the assets that you have, and we'll do our best to make the best rate case that we can, the best support of why it's needed, and we won't ask for one more dollar than we need. But that's our story. It's different than Robert's. We're going to also be in this big element of trying to switch out big generating units and infrastructure. It's a different business. I'll end with this. Robert and I were asked, well, why buy resources? Wouldn't it be more efficient if you two were running the companies together and all in one and that kind of thing? And we both said, well, we don't make those kind of decisions. We have boards and council members that decide stuff like that. But it would be like combining the Spurs with the Cowboys. Two different franchises. Two different elements. We might be able to combine certain things, and we're actually going to try to work with Robert. We have the pleasure of working on a pilot with him to help potentially leverage our investment in digital meters with their potential to combine on our system. And we're making a pitch to work with them to have water and power on the same system, which will leverage dollars and help. We could do that stuff all day long, but it's two different businesses, two different journeys. But we're both very particular. We're both very frugal. We both keep our customers in mind. And then we just want to make sure that our customers understand one increase in 10 years, because we understand how important it is for us to keep our costs under control.
Yeah, and I assume that, an easier way for me to articulate that to the homeowners that I talked to recently is, and I've been saying, look, the cost of generating and transmitting energy isn't getting cheaper, right? And when a utility, has managed to keep its rate, that for that many years, without adjusting it, despite the increasing cost of everything, there comes a point where they have to answer the obvious question, which is, can we keep doing this, or do we need to increase rates? I get it. Robert, rate increases for 2021, is that coming, or what is it that we should expect regarding rates?
Well, first of all, I've already told Paula that I'm going to be the San Antonio Spurs. She can be the Dallas Cowboys.
Darn!
Okay, to answer your question, in 2021, we are not going in front of council asking for a rate increase.
Okay.
Unlike Paula, we have had a series of rate increases over the last 10 years to get us into the position that we are now. Just like Paula said, it's never a pleasant thing. We only do it when we have to do it. And believe me, not only you as a council member, but the ones that preceded you always grilled me when I was there in front of them as to why we need a rate increase and what we're going to do with it. So we do not take it lightly, but we are happy to report that this coming year, 2021, we will not be asking for a rate increase. What I want people to appreciate, however, that every single year, our infrastructure gets that much older. We have over 12,000 miles of infrastructure buried under the ground. Some of it is 40 years old, some of it is 30 years old, some of it was put in there last year and will last another 20 or 30, 40 years. But if you just think of your own home, at some point, you have to replace the roof if you have a 60-year-old house. It won't last 60 years. At some point, you have to change out some of your own plumbing, some of your own electrical. You have to continuously maintain it. And that's what running a utility means, is that at certain points of time, your infrastructure starts aging, and you always want to make it last as long as it can, but not to where it's really dangerous or deteriorating. So we're on top of that. You know, we do spend a lot of money on maintenance. We do a lot of things to try to get to the point where we will not have a rate increase. For example, when we took over Bear Met, our employee count increased by 300 because that's how many employees they had. Within a year and a half, we were back down to the same amount that we were before we took over Bear Met. Right. And Bear Met is a utility, was a utility the size of Corpus Christi. So you can imagine taking over an entity that big and then running it with the same amount of people as before. So that is one example of things we try to do over and over again to make sure that the money that is sent to us for the service that we provide is money very well spent. We truly believe that we are the fiduciaries of that money, and that it is to be spent with the utmost importance and thought going into it on how to make sure our customers feel like they're getting a good service for what they're paying for.
So Robert, you know, following up on that then, I've never been sure, and I've always tried to communicate to folks exactly how complex and sophisticated a utility really is, and how many moving parts there are out there. And I think it's your own fault, yours and Paula's, right, for making it look so easy. I'm serious. I mean, you walk into a room and the light goes instantly on, Paula. Robert, you turn on the faucet and water comes out. And, you know, beyond that, you've made it so effortless that there really is no thought to what it took to get those electrons to my house, right, or those water molecules into my house. And so and I'm gonna ask you, and this is gonna be kind of uncomfortable for you, Robert, but you know, it seems to me that there's some petitions out there, right, that are aimed at CPS and at SAWS. Robert, with regards to the one at SAWS, it seems to me that, you know, whoever wrote that probably didn't understand exactly what, like, the complexities of and, you know, the consequences of what it is their proposals are going to have. And so I know you can't advocate for it, or you can't, shoot it down, but just talk to me about, you know, what the future looks like with regards to these proposals for you.
Well, we know that the proponents need a certain amount of signatures to put it on the ballot, and they're shooting for May of next year to decide on some of these things. Some of the efforts that they have, I think, if I was allowed to address them and talk to them, I would be able to tell them that it's like you were saying, it's much more complicated than just wanting the Vista Ridge project to go away, than just wanting lower rates. For example, San Antonio has the benefit of having a very diverse water supply. We always talk about the Edwards Aquifer, and it's the majority of our supply, but we have 9 different sources. Right. And when you have 9 different sources, you have to treat each one to be exactly the same as Edwards. And not every water is the same. That's what happened in Flint, Michigan. They introduced a different water source into a pipe, and that water source was not compatible with that pipe. And so we have to make sure those kinds of things do not happen. So whether we're getting water from Canyon Lake, from the south side, from the Carrizo Aquifer, from the Wilcox Aquifer, from the Trinity Aquifer, from Lake Medina Lake, we always have to understand that these waters will eventually get mixed together, and we have to treat them to the same chemistry. So that's a very complicated thing that I don't think these petition drivers really appreciate. Another one, for example, is water pressure. Our community is divided into over 15 pressure zones. So if you happen to live on the top of a hill or in the valley, you want a sufficient water pressure, not too much, but enough, the right amount to do what you need to do. Taking a shower, opening up the faucet to get a drink of water. You don't want a little dribble, but at the same time, you don't want things that are going to break your appliances. We have to do that. I doubt if anybody ever thinks about what pressure zone they're in and whether or not we're doing it the right way. Again, that is something that I don't think the petition drivers appreciate what goes into that. Every single water source, every single day, we have tens of employees going out into the system, collecting water samples from various points in the city, various people's outdoor hose bibs or wastewater treatment plants, and bringing those samples back to our laboratory and test them multiple times a day. And not just on the weekdays and not just during the day, but all through the night. A constant laboratory process of making sure that the water is safe to drink and that the water is safe to put back into the environment after we're done with it. I don't think they appreciate that. So it's really something that you almost want to sit down with them and say, I know you don't like that Vista Ridge project, but look at all the other great things that we do. Right. Do not throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing.
So Paula, yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Robert.
No, and I was gonna throw it over to Paula, and I think Paula feels the same way, that she's totally CPS is unappreciated. So let me just tell your viewers, your Zoom attendees, CPS and SAWS have some of the lowest rates in the state of Texas and the United States. We are owned by, both are owned by the city. That means the money just rotates back into the community. When I pay my electric bill, 14% of it goes to the city of San Antonio to keep our property taxes low. At SAWS, my biggest electric bill is to CPS. CPS's biggest bill is to SAWS. So we have a unique situation where all of the profits that would normally go out into the private sector stay within the public sector, stay within San Antonio, stay within SAWS, stay within CPS. So Paula, you can advocate for yourself now.
Yeah, and Paula, I'm going to ask you basically the same question. I mean, I'm seeing this petition that there's a separate petition out there regarding CPS, and it calls for board of trustees to be replaced by council, an accelerated transition to the sustainable energy, and the closure of one of our coal plants by 2030. What's different about that strategy than the strategy you already have in place? You're on mute, my friend.
The first thing I have to do is, put some things in perspective. And for the council, for my council of our attorneys, I have to say for us, it's so difficult because CPS Energy can take no position on anything that's going to be on a ballot, none. And that, whether or not it affects us, it could be about, something else on education. We can't take any political positions, and by far we definitely don't take any political positions on the petition. No for or against. I can't tell people how to vote. Won't ever do that. Good. But it's very, very difficult because the source of the frustration with many members who are supporting this political effort is because there's a disagreement on the velocity of change. And so once again, I'll say, and Robert is exactly right. It's amazing to be in the position that we're in. We compare our rates at CPS Energy against all the competitive markets. Our everyday non-promotional rates are better than the competitive markets. And we spend more money as a ratio of the bill with an investment in the community on energy efficiency. We spend about $4. Every customer is paying, every residential customer is paying $4. Every business is paying a multiple of that, probably 10 times, depending on how big it is. And we spend more on renewables. Again, to be #1 in solar and to be #2 in wind is deliberate because we've listened to the community and we still keep our bills down. And here's the point. So we also, and Councilman Pelaez, that, we send about $1 million a day to the city. And as Robert says, that money stays in the community. So inside of the bill that's already massively affordable, we spend about $1 million a year, and we send it over to the city. That's every day, every weekday, every weekend, every holiday, leap day. No time off. There's no break with that. But that's okay, because that's how we were established. City bought us for $34 million, and we are approaching about $8 billion of return that goes into the community. And now that people, there's a term in the energy industry called energy democracy, and inherently it was driven to make sure that there was an ample focus on putting renewables in the system, and for it to be something that was driven in the community for it to be done. We are embracing renewables in every single way. We're sitting over the $1 million a day without questioning. And we believe that energy democracy in San Antonio is absolutely working. We believe that we need to close coal units, and we've closed 2. We believe that there are new technologies out there that need to be invested in. And I know, Councilman Pelaez, you're constantly thinking and challenging us to say, are you being innovative enough? Are you looking at the new technologies? Are you thinking about resilience? And so the conversations we've had about what has always been, yes, sure, we see your point. But when you're in a conversation with someone who says, but you must do it now, and you must make environmental responsibility your primary objective, don't pay attention to the other 5 issues, it'll all be okay, doesn't really work for us. When the power goes out, the phone calls come to CPS Energy. And then I have a council member saying to me, how'd you let that happen? Right. And then you have customers saying, how did you let that happen? We can't afford to not balance it all and work with everyone and listen to everyone to get it done. But we have a group of people who have said, you must listen to us. We have a group of people who have said, non-negotiable. I don't know anything at the council is always negotiable. At the dais, it's always negotiable. When we're talking to vendors, it's always negotiable. But they've told us non-negotiable. We'll not talk to you anymore unless you meet our demands. And we are saving the world. We want to save the world with them. And we believe that San Antonio is already blazing a trail to get to the right goals. We believe that we can get to net zero carbon emissions and carbon neutrality in San Antonio probably better than most other communities. And so we're fighting over the velocity of change, but we've reached a point where we have people who don't want to keep working on it. They want to fight. And that's distracting. I mean, how do you stay focused on doing the right things? Because this is a 24/7, 365 business. As you said earlier, even though we're thinking about EVs and all these other kind of things, the power has to stay on in the interim, and we have to think about innovation, and we have to keep bills down. But then here's this constant, we're doing it all wrong. Now, the city of San Antonio chose many, many years ago to create a board. Yes. And this group of people have said very visceral things like they want to decapitate our board. They fired, and they need to put this in the hands of where, very respectfully, Councilman, in the hands of people who already have more than a full-time job. You have a full-time job running the city, and you're being asked to take on an entity that's about as big as what you currently oversee. Yeah. As if you would never sleep again. And we understand that we work for the city. We understand that our job is to be energy experts for you and for everyone. We answer to you. You ask us questions. We drive results, and we run the business, and we're changing the business. So we don't really understand it. We think that this is one of the most difficult things. It's amazing to be out there and putting out a global RFP in 10 languages, telling people how awesome San Antonio is and showing them how progressive we really are while we're prudent and frugal. And then they see these headlines. Yeah.
I'll tell you how I reacted, and I don't think both of you will be surprised. I saw these petitions and, I shook my head and said, this is the problem with like what America is doing, which is rejecting expertise, right? Just because, we're all experts now, a little bit of Google here, a little bit of Yahoo there, and suddenly I'm a doctor, I'm an epidemiologist, I'm an engineer, and now I can run a utility. And the reality is that, these utilities are so complicated and such complex and sophisticated assets for our community that really the only way it functions is if we've got subject matter experts from the very lowest ranking employee all the way to the very top. Everybody at CPS, everybody is an expert on electric and gas generation, transmission, and powering homes and businesses and hospitals and even military bases, for goodness sake, right? And then SAWS, you guys have been doing, delivering clean water effectively for, forever. And, on top of that, you absorbed another utility and, you sit on this very, very delicate aquifer. And then on top of that, you got to worry about the blind salamander and the one-eyed, bird or whatever. What is it? The catfish and all this other stuff that lives inside this aquifer. And you've got consent decrees and you've got an aging network of pipes. I don't know how you do it. And then I look at this petition and it says, and we're going to decapitate the board and have Manny Pelaez and his city council members be the managers of both of these utilities. I'll tell you folks, I mean, I like to think I'm a really, really smart guy and that I've got, the bandwidth to do this, but I really don't think that city council has the bandwidth to manage a utility. And we certainly aren't subject matter experts like Paula and Robert or their board members. And so I worry about that. But I guess now we're at closing arguments time. And so Robert, you're welcome to take that up and unpack that a little bit and then give us your closing argument. What do you want people to remember, if anything, about SAWS after this conversation? And Paula, I'll ask you that question too. Robert, go ahead.
The first thing I want people to do is to tell Byron Gibson happy birthday.
Yes.
He's our employee that set this thing together on our behalf. So happy birthday, Byron. What I would like to have people take away is that, and I say this because I know Paula now, since she got to her position. Obviously, we are at the same level of our respective organizations, so I've gotten to know her a little bit better. And so I truly believe that our utilities are as responsive as any entity that you can imagine. And by responsive, I mean we're responsive to the needs of our customers, whether it's water, power, or gas, of our wastewater customers. We're responsive to the needs of the environment. We're responsive to that one individual that has water running down the street and they don't know what's going on and they need somebody to go out there and look. I think we are responsive to the need of having crystal clear, safe, health inducing water that they can never have to second guess themselves as to whether or not they can just put it under the tap and drink it. That is an awesome responsibility. That is something that we do not take lightly. That everyone at SAWS, whether it's the human resources department or the young ladies and gentlemen that answer the phone, or they're the individuals that are out there digging ditches, they know that the service that we provide, people drink it, they bathe in it, they cook with it, they clean with it, and we take it very, very seriously. So I want your constituents and the rest of the citizens of San Antonio to know that we really are responsive to whatever their concerns are.
Thank you, Robert. Paula, take it wherever you want to. Closing arguments.
Okay. Well, look, we're privileged to serve San Antonio. I've been a customer in San Antonio longer than I've been an employee and much longer than I've been CEO. And I've been blessed, and I'm blessed to run this organization. I really want all of the people listening tonight to know we're appreciative of your business. We're appreciative that you trust us to do those things that you don't have to, as Councilman Pelaez said, worry about. We want the light switch to come on every single time. We want to solve problems. We want to listen. We're driven to serve you. We're going to do all we can to make sure that you don't get rolling blackouts in San Antonio or Texas. That's our commitment. And that means we've got to be really, really careful. And we're going to do all we can. It's already nerve-wracking, we think, to talk about a potential rate increase. But we're also thinking about it because we also don't want to keep piling on and piling on and piling on. And when we can do the things well and not be the most expensive market in Texas if we're not careful, because timing can make you the most expensive. Timing can cause true bill shock. And so we don't want that to happen. And we're going to manage all the things that we can to make sure that it doesn't happen. What we're going to do, what we're doing now is we think about you in everything we do. And then to the point that Councilman Pelaez said, we got to do our jobs. And so we think about facts, the ability to think about the physics of providing power, because again, you can't run a community today, even if you want to. You couldn't run San Antonio all on solar, even if you wanted to. You just can't. It just doesn't perform like that. You got to think about the physics of putting it all together. And we have a very diverse portfolio that offsets. And as we make decisions, we're making balanced, bundled decisions that make sure that the physics works for San Antonio. And then we manage the finance. We don't get federal funds. Matter of fact, the money that came in for CARES really went to the city and the county, and we partner with the city and county, and the money goes straight from them to your account. We have programs like Robert that help give you credits to your account if you're really out of a job and having problems. And we want to be the facilitator to help you. We want to make sure that the funds are always managed well, that you can have all the benefits of anything that we have in our programs, that we share information. We'll look up numbers. We'll contact people for you. We'll be helpful, but that's our point. Facts, physics, and finance, because that's a requirement to be a professional in this industry, to do the right thing. Again, behind the scenes for you, you shouldn't have to worry about it, but know that we passionately want to continue to do a great job for you. And so, and then the last thing I'll say is there's been a lot of controversy about a rate advisory committee.
Yes.
SALS has one. We don't have one today, but the board is definitely going to take it up in a vote. The current plan is in December. The mayor he recommended a RAC. A RAC is I believe, an entity where we could talk about a lot more of the details, the complexity. Councilman Pelaez, to your point, it's a lot. It's going to take time. We're going to be looking for people who want to volunteer their time. The council members are always looking for people to do that. We have a CAC and they do a lot of work every month, but now we can potentially have a RAC, and management can handle that. But that's one aspect. These town halls are important to us. We go out and we do people first fairs. We want to hear you. You can write us messages. You can go on the website. You can give our calls to energy advisors. Everybody has a voice as far as we're concerned. The mayor has created and suggested that we do a RAC, but the governing potential, or the governing basis of CPS Energy is an independent board that has been in place for 78 years, coupled with a very responsible council. And those are the two bodies that make the final decision. Management makes a recommendation. They take into consideration a lot of input. We have public input sessions for big major decisions like a rate case, and those come forward. The council has their public input sessions as well, and both of those bodies have to be the ones that make the ultimate final decision. The RAC can't supersede the board or the council, but council members like Councilman Pelaez, they're always listening. They're always listening, and they're telling us what they hear. And they're telling us what they think happens. And so we listen to every single person and put everything in balance and go for the greater good. That's our focus. Nobody sacrificed, but we go for the greater good. So I just ultimately want all of you to know we care. We care about doing the right thing for you. We have done a diligent job. We are humbled by the opportunity. And we want you to feel confident that every single one of our 3,100 people they are experts in their own right, and they have given their careers. I mean, careers at CPS Energy can last a long time, as long as assets, and they're proud to serve. And we're going to be as diligent as we can along the way, every single day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Paula, I want to, and Robert, I want to read you, I think two of the best comments I've seen pop up on Facebook tonight. The first one is by Michael Kennick. And he and I agree wholeheartedly. Michael says, thank you, Paula and Robert, for running our municipal electric and water utilities. Our community is much better served by publicly owned operated utilities as opposed to corporately run utilities. And so, Michael, I agree with you, pal. And, you know, I look at other utilities around the nation, and they're owned by hedge funds and banks out of New York. And, you know, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase own the utilities. In this instance, you own the utility, Mike, and everybody who's been watching tonight owns the utility, and all the profits, they go back to the city of San Antonio, so we can pay for police and fire and airport and parks and, you know, Edwards Aquifer Protection and all that. That is the benefit of us owning our utility. The second comment that I think was important is Rick Espinoza, who says, I lived in many places and I agree that my utility costs have been the lowest in San Antonio. However, my property taxes are high. To that, Rick, I'll say, I don't disagree with you. All of us on this call are property owners as well, but I will tell you that your property taxes would be higher if we had to pay for police and fire and parks and streets and drainage and all those things without the profits that CPS and SAWS kick over to the budget. And so again, yet another reason to be thankful that you're in San Antonio and not somewhere else where the utility not only belongs to people who don't even live in their city, but who aren't as responsive as ours. My closing argument is as follows. I consider myself and my family blessed for living in a city with two utilities that actively work on helping to figure out how I can spend less money than more. That wouldn't happen in other cities. In other cities, they're selling you a product and they're trying to make a profit. In San Antonio, they're trying to make sure the city thrives. That's their number one. I think we're pretty lucky. And I, tonight, was very lucky to have the opportunity to spend time with you, Paula, and with you, Robert. This has been a joy. And if people have more questions for SAWS, Robert, where should they go? Where can they ask questions?
Well, obviously, if they have more questions, we do a lot of communications with council members. A lot of the questions actually go through council, but please call us. We have a website, we have telephone numbers. You'll be surprised how many of our cell numbers are published so that we can be receptive and responsive to our customers. So let us know what concerns y'all. Let us know what the issues are. We don't want to be in a vacuum, and we want to be able to do those services that we are charged to do.
Thank you, Robert. You're one of my favorite constituents also.
Yeah,
also, Paula, if people have any questions about CPS and they want to follow up on some of the topics that we touched on tonight, where can they be directed to?
Okay, so they can call our main number, 210-353-2222. We do have a website and a blog out there. We do have, let me get this right, feedback@cpsenergy.com. We have a public input contact that goes to our address. It's at 500 McCullough. Okay. And we can get all of this information to you nice and bundled, and you can put it on your newsletter, but also they can just call us and we'll direct them and answer and take the feedback that they have for us.
Wonderful. And for folks, if you forget any of those numbers or emails or addresses, you can always contact my office at council.district8@sanantonio.gov. God bless all of you. Thank you. Be safe. And when you see construction workers out there in the yellow or orange vests, it's chances that they are CPS or SAWS or City of San Antonio employees. Please drive slowly. They are San Antonians too, and we cannot take any risks with their lives. We want to make sure that they go home to their loved ones. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.